We believe that Shin will turn to the light. Greetings, curious acolytes of the galaxy from far, far away, and welcome back to the archives. Episode 7 of Ahsoka may not have given us a whole lot of answers as to what secrets lie on Peridea, but it did show us some very interesting developments in the relationship between Baylan and Shin. We recently talked about how Baylan fears the path that Shin is going down. He sees the darkness in her and her darker tendencies, believing that she is not yet ready to share in the power that he seeks on the world. As their paths separate, as too does history now change. As Baylan leaves Shin to follow her own path with the Empire, she engages Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka with the bandits, as well as a large group of stormtroopers. Her assault though fails as Ahsoka arrives just in time to help in the battle, able to fend off Shin without even using her lightsabers at all. Once it is all said and done though, Shin is left completely alone as Thrawn calls for a full retreat. Ahsoka though extends her hand out to Shin and asks her to join them, saying that she can help her. Shin is confused, angry, and probably afraid. As such, she turns and runs the other way. But this episode did many things thematically and aesthetically that is hinting to us that Shin will eventually change and join the way of the light. We here at the archives believe that she is destined to be trained under Ahsoka Tano. So let's go ahead and discuss this and explain why we believe that Shin will turn to the light and that Ahsoka will receive full redemption. The first thing we need to look at is how Shin is portrayed in the episode. Star Wars is known to play around with a lot of colors, especially with a monochrome of blacks, whites, and grays when dealing with the moral or mental standpoint of specific characters. For most of the series, Ahsoka has been wearing gray, signifying her issues and confliction, as well as her more cynical outlook on life in the beginning and the galaxy at large. But with Baylan and Shin, they are separated by dark and light. Baylan's tunics and armor are colored a dark gray, almost black, whereas Shin is shown to always be wearing lighter gray, almost a silver color, with her armor being silver itself. Even her very hair is white, and in episode 7, Baylan was riding a black howler and Shin was riding a white one. It's certainly no coincidence that as soon as they got these opposingly colored mounts, that their paths would diverge. We believe these colors are indicative of their destinies. Baylan is going deeper into darkness as he isolates himself and seeks the mysterious power on Peridea, whereas Shin is on the course to the light, introduced to a new possibility of a new beginning with real Jedi. Of course, it will take a lot of time and development, or it could come as a result of a shocking event that rocks everything Shin believes down to her very core. This can only come though from her former master in Baylan. Shin greatly looks up to her master, which is something that we've seen since their first appearance. And throughout the series, we can see the way that Shin looks at her master for answers or guidance in uncertain situations. She has formed a close bond with him and believes in everything that he does, even if he isn't giving her much information to go off of. The one thing I could see turning Shin to the light is if this trust is smashed into a million pieces. There is a theory going around now that speculates that Baylan will end up either betraying or attempting to outright sacrifice Shin, leaving her life to whatever power he seeks on Peridea. While this may seem completely far-fetched, it's not outside the scope of possibility, considering how far we've seen Baylan has been willing to go to seek this power. I believe that this slippery slope into madness and obsession could certainly lead him to attempting to use Shin as a sacrificial lamb, doing so in service of whatever entity is calling out to him. Baylan could go off the deep end, and it wouldn't exactly come out of nowhere. This certainly would be a shock to her system, and force her to flee to the only place where she believes she is safe. That is, with the Jedi, Ahsoka, and the help that was offered to her. Something else I believe will happen is Shin could become slowly disillusioned with the Jedi. Shin has never really found anything interesting with the Empire in the first place beyond what her master promised, in that being power. Although Shin is ambitious and power hungry, she is not completely sold on the idea of an empire. Moving forward in the next couple of episodes, I believe we will see Shin as she is very confused about the loss of her master, and especially without the guidance of her master. When Baylan reveals that he is leaving her, we can visibly see how stunned she is. She isn't even sure how to respond other than to ask her master why he isn't helping. She may have shouldered his departure bravely, but the reality of her abandonment will hit soon enough. So far, Shin hasn't done anything or gone anywhere without the guidance or direction of Baylan, and we know that she still has many questions about her own identity and the Force itself. This abandonment by Baylan came much too soon, and her training is incomplete. She may be competent with the lightsaber and the Force, but she is clearly directionless. She has ambition and drive, but we haven't learned what her desire truly is. is. She's just going along with whatever Baylan has for her. This is why it is now inevitable that Shin will likely be trained by Ahsoka Tano. But again, just as this would be important for Shin, it will be just as important for Ahsoka. Ahsoka's whole character arc up until this point has been dealing with her feelings towards her own abandonment, and more importantly, the abandonment of Anakin Skywalker. First though, Ahsoka abandoned the Jedi Order, then by Anakin turning to Vader, and after that, she abandoned Sabine, the last of which she has been struggling to forgive herself for. Ahsoka has begun to atone for this by training Sabine yet again and speaking with Anakin. But if we're all being honest, Sabine's destiny doesn't lie with Ahsoka, it lies with Ezra. Ezra Bridger will likely train Sabine, it's only natural. It was he and Kanan who trained her in Rebels, not Ahsoka. That training will need to be made complete. Their bond is now inseparable. Over the course of the show, Ahsoka has been building her relationship with Sabine, and while that definitely has improved, they are clearly not going to be a great fit for the long term. We may be completely off base with this assumption, but it seems that Shin and Ahsoka have much more in common and a lot more to work with. Ahsoka will be able to fully mend her guilt over abandoning Sabine, and before this, abandoning Anakin Skywalker. Isn't it interesting that the critique that Baylan levies at Ahsoka in the previous episodes about abandoning Anakin can now be said for his own character, as he has abandoned Shin? This is an extremely integral part. More importantly, Baylan has become far more villainous because of the fact that he has abandoned Shin because he believes that she is not worthy of the power that he seeks, and that her ambitions lie elsewhere. Ahsoka Tano betrayed Anakin, or rather abandoned Anakin, because she felt she no longer belonged with the Jedi. Ahsoka did not leave Anakin because she wanted power. She left Anakin because she lost faith in the Jedi. Baylan has now made a far worse sin. What's more than this, more than anybody else besides maybe Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka understands how to interact with those that had once embraced the dark. She learned from this directly from Anakin, and has finally accepted everything that Anakin had to teach her, forgiving herself and learning more about Vader, Anakin, and why Vader ultimately turned, but more importantly, that he could be forgiven. This is why Ahsoka Tano reaches out her hand to Shin. This is the lesson given to her by Anakin in action. Shin will be able to relate to Ahsoka more since they both have their misgivings about the original Jedi. Baylan had a soft spot for the Jedi and trained Shin in some of the Jedi ways, but he trained her to minimize the Jedi weakness, or at least what he called weakness. Ahsoka has gone through the process of detoxing herself from the weaknesses of the Jedi though, same as Baylan wanted to, something clearly seen with how she interacts with Hu Yang. One thing that is being overlooked is how much Ahsoka has in common with the Dark Jedi. The fact that she too decided to leave the Order, but for different reasons. And yet, Ahsoka remains in the light, whereas they turn to embrace the dark. Ahsoka has a lot to teach Shin, and can relate to her on multiple levels. Shin can learn to respect Ahsoka as her new master, and this could make everything come full circle. Shin accepted fully and completely for the first time. But of course, what do you think of this, my friends? What did you think of Baylan making the same mistake that he levied at Ahsoka? Do you think that with Ahsoka is where Shin's journey lies? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, may the Force be with you.